The Oilers claw their way out of an early hole and even up their series against the Stars as Don Waddell goes from Carolina to Columbus to run their hockey operations. Hey everyone, welcome into Off the Post. Rob Wong joined alongside by Toronto Sun Sports columnist Steve Simmons, Canucks reporter for the Vancouver Sun of the province Patrick Johnston, and Postmedia hockey columnist Bruce Garrioch. And guys, as they say, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And the Oilers proved that in their 5-2 Game 4 win that evened up the Western Conference final at 2 games apiece. And if there's one thing, Steve, that we've learned so far about this series is that it is unpredictable. Having said that, though, I am going to ask you which team you feel most confident in as we advanced down to the best of 3 here in this series.
Remember in school you used to get a multiple choice question with A, B, C, and then D was all of the above? I think my answer right now is all of the above. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to make a Hulk Hogan analogy here, because Game 3 and Game 4 of this series were like Hulk Hogan matches. He came out and he'd get beaten up for the first 5 minutes, and he'd be doing that shaking, and he'd be, going, getting the crowd behind him and then coming back. And then, of course, he'd come back, leg drop, and win the match. That's what's happened in the last 2 Oiler games. I mean, it's unbelievable theater. The one team comes out and swamps them to start the game. The other guys come back, somehow take over the game. And I don't know what to make of this other than, boy, it's entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I thought I give the Oilers credit because they bounced back from the first goal was horrible. Okay, first goal on Stuart Skinner, Patrick, was beyond bad. I thought, oh my God, it's 2-0 before you know it. I think we've witnessed this movie before. I was ready to put the knife in the Oilers at that point. And then they bounce back and make it 2-2. And I thought from there kind of took over the game. The one thing I will say is they had, in my eyes, the Oilers, Patrick, have done a tremendous job of overcoming that adversity. I still think they're in a difficult spot to win this series because I kind of feel like the Dallas Stars are one of those teams you just can't put down. But I think that now it's a best of 3 and let's see where it goes. I think Dallas will prevail, but that's me.
Who scores the most goals, guys? That's really what it's coming down to. And goaltending, we love to say, is voodoo. We're seeing that more than ever with Stuart Skinner. The team left in the NHL playoffs with the most goals per game is the Edmonton Oilers. And they have outscored their problems all year. There was no mistake why they were so strong to finish the season, why they were so strong in the second half. I mean, I saw this story obviously up close dealing with the Canucks and the Oilers series that, the Canucks looked twice like they were about to take control, and then the Oilers came roaring back. So this script has been written before. The one thing for me to watch in all this, Dallas, obviously a strong defensive team, so deep, but Chris Tanev has been such an important pickup for them. And if he's not able to go, and he missed the game, he left the game last night, and he's a guy that will play through anything. I mean, the guy has 3 teeth left. If he's not able to come back, that's going to be a big concern for them.
There's one thing I try to read in every playoff series I watch and or cover, and it's at what point in time is one team looking more playing their style than the other team playing their style. And I don't think after 4 games I'm comfortable saying that this is the Dallas Stars team that I've watched all season and in the playoffs. They're not controlling the game the way they usually do, because I think the Oilers are just so high-end difficult to play against. And they have now, you add Bouchard to McDavid and to Draisaitl, and it's a 3-headed monster. That's not even counting Hyman and anybody else. But to me, if you ask after 4 games, yeah, it's 2-2. Which team looks more like their team? I say the Edmonton Oilers. And I thought Dallas was going to win the Stanley Cup. I think they're going to be in trouble just to get through this series.
Yeah, it's been a tough one so far for Dallas at times, but still 2-2 heading into the final 3 games. And Patrick, it's been a tough series in playoff time and playoffs at times for Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse. You, of course, as you mentioned, got to see a bit of that firsthand against the Canucks. Plus minus, of course, is not the be-all and end-all, but when a guy's putting up a number that might put him in contention for the Canadian Open this week, it does raise alarm bells. Do you think he deserves a lot of the heat that he's taken?
Well, he's on the big contract. It's pretty simple. He got signed to be the man, and he hasn't been the man. Now, they've obviously had Evan Bouchard, who's emerged as the man, and that I had him up high up on my Norris Trophy vote. The guy's had an impressive season. He can handle the puck. Not great in his own end, but when you're playing with Connor McDavid, it's about getting the puck up the ice, and he's adept at that. Nurse, I mean, when they went into the game partnering him, what it looked like it might go back to Cody Ceci, I was just aghast. I couldn't understand it. They were a terrible pairing through the first 2 series. I think putting Brett Kulak with him was the smart decision. Chris Knobloch has not always hit all the notes as head coach, but he's hit a lot of them. And I think playing Nurse less, which, when you're paying him as much as you are, it shouldn't be the solution. But so far, I think it is the way. If you don't play him as much, you're not putting him out at risk as much as they have been.
I think the concern with a guy like Darnell Nurse is, I think he went into last night's game at -12. As you say, Rob, the clubhouse leader in the playoffs, and the closest competitor, I think, was on Florida. Is it Ekman Larson at -4? I mean, that doesn't bode well for you when the guy you're paying all that money, and it does equate to salary, is -12. And you can talk about bad bounces, or you can talk about being on the ice, Steve, in bad situations. But at this time of year, you need your best players to be your best players. And you talk, Steve, about the fact that, the Oilers' best players have been top dogs, but they also need Darnell Nurse to join into that fight.
The thing when you sign one of those contracts, what comes with the contract is people viewing you differently. You're now supposed to play at the level of the dollars. And remember, we watched sports and we didn't know what athletes made, and we just liked players because they were good or they weren't good or any of that. Well, we don't anymore. It's now, what's the salary? Yeah. How much does he make? And can he play to that level? Well, from the moment they signed Darnell Nurse, frankly, it was too much. And so they signed him to a place that he didn't belong. And good for him for getting the money, and good for him for getting the long-term deal. But he's not an upper echelon NHL defenseman, and he's never been an upper echelon NHL defenseman. And expecting him to be one just because his salary says that, I think is incorrect at this point in time. He certainly should be better than he's been. But don't tell me that he's Heiskanen or Fox or one of these upper echelon guys, Makar or Yossi or whoever's going to win the Norris. Hughes is going to win the Norris this year. Any of those guys. He's not a candidate. He's not a guy who gets a vote. He's not a guy who gets an all-star vote. And it's gone bad for him, but it's gone worse because of the number beside his name, the contract, and the dollars involved.
Yeah, well, it was at least a bounce-back game for him in game number 4 as the Oilers and Stars are headed to the best of 3 down the stretch here. Lastly, the Blue Jackets made it official earlier this week. Former Hurricanes GM Don Waddell, now their new president of hockey ops and general manager, Bruce. This is someone that's done pretty much everything in the game of hockey, but is he the right fit for this Blue Jackets team that's in desperate need of some help to try to turn things around?
I remember Don Waddell when he was the GM of the Orlando Solar Bears in the old International Hockey League. Look, this is a guy who has spent his lifetime in hockey. I think what this hiring did was allow John Davidson to take a soft landing in an advisory role. I happen to think that Don Waddell will be the president of hockey operations and general manager for a while. I think he'll bring in somebody to be the general manager at some point. I think Don Waddell has done a tremendous job under, what I would call difficult circumstances in Carolina. That is not an easy. Tom Dundon is not an easy owner to work for, and the Columbus Blue Jackets need somebody to get them back to respectability, and you can't blame Doug MacLean anymore. I think he's been gone 14 or 15 years. They still like to blame.
But how much fun is it blaming Doug MacLean?
That's why I bring it up, because people blame Doug all the time. But he hasn't been there for 14 years. I just think, Steve, that Don Waddell is so well respected. He's very smart. He's not only a smart hockey person, he's a smart business person, and I think that he's going to. The people in Columbus are just starved to cheer for their team, and I think he can get them back to where they need to be.
Well, it's funny. He goes from one of the best teams in the NHL in Carolina and a team that was a Stanley Cup contender for the last several years to one of the worst operations in all of hockey. And so what are the Columbus Blue Jackets? It's a mishmash of parts that don't fit. So not only does Don Waddell have to go in there, he has to go in as general manager, as president. He's got to decide whether, Pascal Vincent is going to be his coach or not. And if not that, finding a coach, building an organization, building the operation. There's a lot to be done there with some nice young parts, but they don't seem to all fit together. And so it's weird to see a guy go from great team to bad team at any time, because let's face it, they're in the winning business, but he's also in the money-making business. And when working for Carolina, he was probably one of the lowest paid hockey executives in the NHL. And now I suspect he's either middle of the pack or closer to upper of the pack. And finally, he's getting paid for years of not getting all that much money.
Guys, Don Waddell is the 1994-95 IHL Executive of the Year. This guy has been around. He knows what's up. He's known how things can go in a not standard hockey market. Obviously, Carolina, we've seen the story there. Absolutely, totally 100% spot on, Bruce. Like, very difficult circumstances, and he did a great job there. Obviously, before that was in Atlanta. Atlanta, not the same story, but he's been around. He's seen how it works. He's certainly now up to the test of seeing whether he can build this organization finally into something that actually has a sense of what success is and not just bringing up the rear like Columbus always has since the start.
Well, with Don Waddell and John Davidson together, this might be the most experienced front office in the NHL with the amount of years these guys have been around the game. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Steve Simmons, Patrick Johnston, and Bruce Garrioch, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.